Good evening and welcome to the December 20th, 2021 meeting of the Roseville Independent Redistricting Commission. The commission is now called to order. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Borowiak? Here. Cuthbertson? Here. Frank?
Here.
Griffith? Here. Ludwig? Here. McPhail? Here. O'Keefe?
Here.
Sweeney? Oh, Sweeney is attending remotely. And Wagner?
There she is.
Is she?
Yep, I can see
there
her.
she is.
Yeah. Hi, I'm here. Thanks.
And Wagner?
Here.
Weldrip?
Here.
Commission alternates, Kuhn?
Here.
Slaughter? Here. We have a commission alternate donor is absent, as well as Commissioner Willoughby.
All right, thank you. Holly, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we begin, I just wanted to recognize that I believe this is Sonia Orozco's last IRC meeting. Is that right? And I'll wish her well. Thank you. And we're going to do things a little bit out of order. We'll take item number 3.1 regarding phone calls for public comment before we take public comment. So, Joe, if you want to take over there.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Mandel with the City Attorney's Office. The first item before you tonight is an administrative matter related to the Brown Act and something similar to the item that we had at our October 25th meeting, where we allowed remote telephonic public comment. And so I'm going to give a quick recap as to what we did at that last meeting, because what we're doing at this meeting is somewhat of the exact same analysis. And so you recall from my prior presentations about the Brown Act, the focus of the Brown Act is on open meeting rules and the public's ability to attend and participate in meetings and have the meetings be open and transparent. So when COVID hit back in March of 2020, the governor issued several executive orders and emergency orders that waived several Brown Act requirements related to us meeting in person together. So that was the time when we were all meeting via Zoom and having Zoom meetings. So I want to then fast forward to over this summer in June of 2021. The governor issued new executive orders that rescinded all of those Brown Act changes. And so what that did was, effective September 31st, we went back to old Brown Act rules, which is us meeting together in person. So as of October 1st of this year, local agencies were required to observe all of the old prior Brown Act requirements as they existed pre-COVID. So in response to that, the Assembly passed Assembly Bill 361, and the governor signed it into law, and that amends Government Code Section 54953, and that provides authority and specific requirements for public agencies to be able to hold virtual meetings and during proclaimed states of emergency. So we're not necessarily holding our meetings remotely. We're all in one room. But what we're doing by this action item is we are offering up the opportunity for the public to be able to provide comment remotely via the telephone. They're already able to view this on various cable channels and YouTube and stream it live. And so this would give them the option of participating via the telephone remotely. So in order to do that, we have to comply with AB 361, and that requires that we have certain rules in place if we're going to meet remotely. So if the Independent Redistricting Commission wishes to authorize remote participation in its meetings, we need to comply with the new provisions of AB 361. And so that's sort of the analysis that we did at our October 25th meeting, where we looked at, is there a declared state of emergency in the state of California? Answer is yes. Then you move through your analysis with AB 361. So since there is a state of emergency, we look at, are there any social distancing measures in place? And at this time, there are no social distancing measures in place that have been imposed or recommended by our local officials. And so then the next portion of the analysis that we would then need to do is the commission would need to make a finding that meeting in person would present imminent risks to the health or safety of the public or attendees of the meeting as a result of that emergency. So we had a discussion about that at our last meeting, and part of what I brought up at the last meeting was we were passing an initial resolution at our last meeting, which covered a period of 30 days from October 25th to November 24th. And I'll take the blame for not catching this at the last meeting and doing the renewal portion of it. But really what you have to do is every 30 days, renew your reasons for, stating that, yes, meeting in person would present imminent risks to the health or safety of the public or attendees of the meeting. So for all intents and purposes, what you're considering tonight with the resolution that's in your packet is the same resolution that we did before, which is the initial resolution. And then at one of our next meetings in January, if we so choose, and if it passes tonight, we would then bring that renewal forward. So again, tonight is an initial resolution that we're considering to cover the time period from December 20th to January 19th. And so a couple of the things that I would state are a little bit different from our October 25th meeting when we originally looked at this. Back in October, there were still no social distancing measures in place, but since then, on December 15th, the California Department of Public Health has issued a 30-day indoor mask mandate. So that's something that's different. The last meeting that we met at, the Delta variant was the only name that we knew of. Now we know of Omicron and however many others there are. We know that, COVID can be contracted by vaccinated or unvaccinated people. And so those are a little bit of the differences that we have from our October meeting. But really in front of you guys today is, again, the discussion of we need to look at whether or not we would allow remote telephonic public comment. And in order to do that, we do that analysis of, is there a state of emergency? Yes. Is there local social distancing measures in place? No. And so therefore, this commission needs to make a finding that meeting in person would present imminent risks to the health or safety of the public or attendees of the meeting. So the resolution that's in your packet now notes all of those items. And so I will turn it over to the chair now for further discussion. And we can't do telephonic public comment for this item here, but in the event that it passes or that we have a discussion where it passes, there would be remote telephonic public comment allowed for the rest of the items tonight.
Thanks, Joe. Are there any questions from commissioners on the proposed resolution? We'll open it up to the public if anybody has any comments regarding the proposed resolution in item 3.1.
Hi, Lisa Larkin. I really didn't want to come down here tonight and expose myself, but I did because I wasn't sure you were going to pass that, and I want to make comments tonight on the redistricting maps. I do know that there is at least one person waiting to call in, so I hope you will pass this. Obviously, the condition has worsened, and some of you may not feel at risk, but there are people like myself who have family members who are at risk and have immune issues and had to be here for this. So I'd appreciate you considering passing it. Thanks.
Anybody else on the public? Is there a motion from the commission to pass this resolution?
So moved.
A motion?
Second? Oh, I move.
Second.
Yeah.
Okay. Borowiak,
Yes.
Cuthbertson,
Yes.
Frank,
Yes.
Griffith, Ledwig,
Yes.
McPhail,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
Sweeney,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Aldrich.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. And just for reiteration, as we move forward, feel free to call in at public comment, 916-774-5353. Back to you, Chair Frank. Thanks.
Thanks, Joe. So again, the number is 916-774-5353. In the meantime, we'll open it up to the public comment for the folks that are in the audience for things that are not on the agenda.
Good evening. Bonnie Gore, resident of Roseville, and we're going to ask Sonia just to come out for a moment, since it is Sonia Orozco's last official meeting overseeing and working with one of these wonderful boards and commissions. I had the pleasure of working with Sonia for over 6 years, first, actually longer than that, serving on a local board and commission, but then running for office and then serving on the city council. And Sonia, I just have to say thank you. You have done an amazing job the last 20 some odd years that you have served the city of Roseville. And I just want to share just your attention to detail, your friendliness, your professionalism, your willingness to hear input from people and get things done. I saw you do that all the time. And your job is not easy, as you have so much to coordinate, and especially with the elections, which are never easy. I want to tell you how much I appreciate the work you've done just to help candidates through the process. You even listened to my husband, who is very particular and helped make suggestions on ways that we did things when it came to tracking candidates and spending. So I just want to publicly say thank you. As a former city council member, I'm sure that Richard Rakucci would say the same thing, that you have really served our city well. I'm sorry that you're going to leave, but I know that you live here and hopefully you'll continue to stay involved. But I just want to express my appreciation just for the great work you've done all these years. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Bonnie.
I am Ryan Ronco, Placer County Clerk, Recorder Registrar of Voters, and resident of Roseville. And I also wanted to echo what Supervisor Gore said about your city clerk, Sonia Orozco. Sonia and I have worked together through elections matters for now some 20 years, I guess. And it has been a real pleasure for us to be able to work so closely together. You don't know how often it is that problems occur during an election, and we are blessed to be able to have such a great working relationship between the county and the city. We're also blessed with many great city clerks in Placer, and we've also worked with others that have been great Roseville city clerks. But Sonia and I think over the years have been able to grow into these positions together and be able to have a great working relationship. One example would be at the beginning of this pandemic, where we processed passports at the county. The city had just begun or was kind of gearing into its processing of passports as well. And we could not process passports at the county because of COVID, but you guys were well suited to be able to set that up and be able to take on our clients that weren't going to be able to be served unless it was because Sonia was able to come through in the clutch for them. So, Sonia, thank you very much for all the years of service. Thank you for being such a great partner in elections with us, and I wish you all the best in your retirement.
Thank you, Brian.
Are there any phone-in public comments?
Looks like you
Yeah.
Hi, Richard Rakucci, former council member. I can't say enough about what these two people have said about Sonia. In fact, a little while ago, I told her if I was still on the council, I wouldn't let her leave. But that's neither here nor there. She deserves her retirement. I just wanted to say briefly that I want to thank the commission members for what you're doing. It's not an easy task. As you well know, that the county level, state level, even at the federal level, it's really controversial and what have you. You received a lot of input from individuals and a lot of organizations. And I would just caution you that you're an independent commission. That's in your title. And so you should make sure that you don't take one over the other, but you also that you melt those in with your staff. Your attorneys here, Mr. Mandel, you did a terrific job of the memos I've read. But no matter what you do tonight or later on in January, you're going to make some people happy and some people not so happy. I won't say mad, but not so happy. But it's a difficult job, and I really appreciate it. What you've stepped up to the plate to do the city of Roseville. In fact, it may be one of the more difficult jobs for a temporary commission than any of the others that we have in the city. But I want to thank you again for your efforts and your effort for the city.
Thank you. Again, one last check to see if there's any phone calls. No phone calls. So thank you for the public comments. We're now going to move to item number 5, the reading of the minutes. Are there any amendments from the commission regarding the minutes of November 22nd? Are there any comments from the public regarding the minutes of November 22nd? Can I hear a motion to pass the meeting, approve the minutes of the meeting on November 22nd?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from November 22nd.
Second.
There's a motion, a second.
Commissioner Borowiak?
Yes.
Cuthbertson?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Griffith?
Yes.
Ludwig?
Yes.
McPhail?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Sweeney?
Yes.
Wagner?
Yes.
Waldron?
Yes.
And also, just for a reminder, anybody who doesn't know, especially from home, Commissioner Sweeney is joining us from Ireland?
Dublin, Ireland.
Dublin, Ireland.
Yes.
The agenda on the door where she's staying, so anybody from the public can join her.
There is nobody here.
All right, now we move on to item 6, reports and presentations, 6.1. This is Helen Dreyer.
Well, actually, just wanted to remind you, Chair Frank, that you were provided 2 communities of interest testimony in your packet, and since that time, we've received 4 more, and those were laid at the dais for you. And they're available for the public at the end of the staff table here as well. But other than that, this is just an item for you to receive testimony from the public.
Walk through real quick, what are the communities of interest so far? And Joe, if you want.
I think that's something that Jed's going to end up
Ed can
doing
talk-
as he
we'll
goes
talk about
through
that,
the,
all right.
yeah.
So is that all for 6.1 or?
Can I ask a quick question? Did I get those last 4 that came in, or can those be emailed to me if they weren't in the original digital packet?
We can definitely email those to you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Actually, you probably have it in here. I'm sorry, you do have them in here already, I think.
Not all of them, only,
Some of them are in the previous months.
so this item is just to take more public testimony from anyone that has any community of interest testimony that they would like to provide, either in person or over the phone here.
Okay, so we'll open it up to public comment. If there are any additional communities of interest that you'd like to bring to our attention.
Good evening. My name is Einar Maish, and I've lived in Roseville for a little over 20 years. I live in the Stone Ridge area. I would like to suggest that I think the communities of interest can be formed around the time period in which development occurred. Because I think things have changed significantly, and within Roseville there's kind of 3 periods. There was of course, before World War II, we were a small community and a railroad town. But then after World War II, there was a lot of development that happened. And in that development, the city was really a partner in the development. The city would provide roads. The city would, provide the libraries, the parks, the fire stations, the lighting, the landscaping, and then Proposition 13 passed. And as a state, I think one of the intentions of Proposition 13 was the people who live there now no longer wanted to pay for the development that happened in the future. And so the development that occurred in the 50s and 60s and early 70s had a financial underpinning that was very different from the development that's happened in the last 30 years. We've seen Melrose districts. The housing that's developed over the last 30 years has all funded their own infrastructure, funded their own fire stations, funded their own police, libraries, schools. And so you end up with a lot of differences. And I think one of the classic differences that you can see is if you drive down Rocky Ridge south of Douglas, it's a wide road and there was a landscape corridor in there, but it was in the World War II, post-World War II area before Proposition 13. And so all of the maintenance had to be done off of the public or general fund out of taxes, and that source of funding is dried up. And so you look at a landscape that's pretty barren. You compare that to, you move on the other side of Douglas and you look at Eureka and East Roseville Parkway, and where you've got Melrose districts that are funding that, and you've got lush landscapes. It's just an example of how the different funding mechanisms for the different time periods of development raised a bunch of issues, and the people who live in those neighborhoods around those time periods, I think, end up with a real commonality of interests, and those can be a good basis. One, there are many, obviously, but a good basis for forming, identifying communities of interest. Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope you'll also attend some of the public meetings that we have out and about in the community to, move lines here and there as you see fit, or make suggestions as you see fit.
I should have mentioned what Richard said. I'm on the Public Utility Commission for the city of Roseville, and the work you guys are doing is hard work, and it's appreciated by me, and I think lots of people who understand how difficult it is, and thank you. I don't know that I'm going to go on the road show.
Public comments? Regarding communities of interest.
I've got a thicker mask on, so it's fogging up my glasses today. Thank you for all you guys are doing for the Independent Commission. Lisa Larkin, Roseville resident. I recently was one of the map makers that collaborated for the Placer County, and that was a bit of a mess. And I'm very grateful that we have an Independent Commission here. I just wanted to make some comments. I've gone through every map that had been submitted and made some notes on all of them. And I'm just going to start by saying there are 3 maps that stand out that keep all the neighborhoods together. Actually, two maps keep all the neighborhoods together, map 15 and map 25. There's one little tiny piece of Sun City that is divided by a block that's in Quail Glen. So if you look at the maps online, it shows that Sun City's really not kept together, but it's the tiniest little block that I don't even know if it has any population in it. So other than that, all the neighborhoods are kept intact. They're both compact. They're 2 different style maps, but they meet all of those requirements. They also keep almost all of the police districts together. I think that map 15 has 1 police district, and map 25 only has 2 police districts that are not kept completely intact.
And those police districts are listed as communities of interest.
It's not part of the VRA, no. It's compact, contiguous.
But they're listed in our list of communities of
They're
interest.
in the map builder tool where you can bring it up and see where those things fall. And, when you're using those tools and trying to align the best of them, I mean, there are some development areas that are split like all over the place, and you can't keep that development together no matter what you do. But the police districts, you can. In most cases, and then the school districts are similar. They're kind of all over the place, and you really can't keep them together. But they have their own separate districts anyway, so not part of the VRA. So map 25 and 15 are the top as far as keeping all the neighborhoods together. Map 24 would be next.
Can I ask real quick? Because I think we're talking about item 6.1 regarding communities of interest. Are there any communities of interest that you'd like to add to what we
Yes,
already
so
have?
There's a lot of the maps that are on
What
here.
specific maps?
There's a lot of the maps that are on, well, I just wanted to kind of leave, to be honest with you. I don't want to be here, especially before the holidays and putting family members who have immune issues at risk. So if you don't mind, if I just make those comments and then I can go, Would that be okay?
How much time does each speaker have?
3 minutes?
Okay.
5 minutes? Okay. Map 24, I just wanted to say, the only one that gets divided on that is Vineyard, and it's that part of that little tail that comes down on that bottom left side of Roseville. Very small, and also keeps all but 3 police districts together. But yeah, and a lot of these maps have the piece missing, which is Sierra Vista between Washington and Atlantic Street. And actually, a couple of those were maps that I submitted early on, not realizing that was an important thing to those people that live in that area. So I think it's very important when you look at those maps to make sure that between Washington and Atlantic, there's a checkerboard-looking grid corner that needs to be included, along with potentially the Sierra, the high school that's right there. And that was something that was important. Yeah, so those are my comments. There's a lot of maps on here that have a lot of neighborhoods that are divided. So I went through every single one of them and just circled the 3 that fit the best for the VRA. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else from the public for comment? No callers? Okay, thank you. All right, so again, there's no action necessary on that item, correct? Correct. And just want to take notes of some of the, and I'm wondering also if the communities of interest that you mentioned, Einer, if they fall under historical communities of interest as well, or do you see that as different?
Yeah, I think history is very important. I'm not sure how to respond to the question. I don't think I understood it.
Okay, so I know we do have historical communities of interest. I don't know if we have specifically based on like larger, after early Roseville, if we've really divided it up into that. So it's good to consider that as well. So we can move on to item number 6.2. That's. Where's Joe?
Yep, that's my item, and we're going to pull up a little PowerPoint presentation. I don't have anything PowerPoint-wise for you guys, but my staff report is a lot of cut and paste of the Article 11 city charter language, and so you can follow along there, or you can follow along with the presentation here. It's really just a lot of the same thing, but what I wanted to go over on this item is we're picking maps tonight. We're narrowing it down from the 23 public submittals and narrowing it down to a handful of them. And so I want to talk about what the redistricting criteria are going to be that we're looking at, as well as what the map adoption procedures will be from tonight and moving forward, just so in case anybody has any questions or comments or anything. So that's what this item's about. So first slide here is really just a background of, why are we here? What are we doing? Because this is the Independent Redistricting Commission is something that was created by Roseville citizens wanted it. This was passed by the voters at the November 3rd, 2020 election with the passage of Measure R, and that created Article 11 in our Roseville City Charter, which is available on our homepage if you want to go check that out. But the very first section of that Article 11 talks about the purpose of the Independent Redistricting Commission. And so purpose is to establish a redistricting process that's open and transparent and allows public comment on the drawing of city council district boundaries, ensures that the district boundaries are drawn according to the redistricting criteria set forth in the city charter and applicable state and federal laws, and to ensure that the redistricting process is conducted with integrity, fairness, and without personal or political considerations. So having that as a bit of background, now we're going to look at Article 11 of the City Charter, Section 11.9, and that's where we start talking about the specific redistricting criteria. These are the things that you shall look at, you shall not look at, and then the things that we put in priority. So this first slide, I'm really just cutting and pasting out of the sections of the City Charter. So you can see this is subsection A, and then we have subparts 1 and 2. So Commission shall draw its map so that council districts are substantially equal in population as required by the Constitution. And so that population equality is based on the latest federal decennial census. And so that's the information we've been waiting for. And then sub number 2 is the council district boundaries should comply with the United States Constitution, the California Constitution, Federal Voting Rights Act, and various laws. So I can say that most of the ones that are coming before you tonight have been vetted through this process, and we're making sure that they comply with this, and those are the 23 that we're bringing forward to you. So now the next slide is the start of what you guys get to look at, and I'm sorry for the wordiness of this, but you can see the bold words of really what we're looking at here. So now that we've passed that initial hurdle of, you shall draw your map so that the districts are substantially equal in population and that they comply with the laws, the Commission should also adopt district boundaries using the following criteria. And again, these are going to go in order of priority. We have 5 of them. And so item number 1, this is in order of priority. Council districts shall be drawn so that they're geographically contiguous. And you see that areas that meet only at points of adjoining corners are not contiguous, and that areas that are separated by a rail yard or a highway are not considered contiguous either. So there is a qualifier in there that says to the extent practicable, and so I'd like you guys to all notice that on each one of these items is that, we are doing this in order of priority, but again, that qualifier of to the extent practicable. Sorry. So item number 2 then in order of priority is to the extent practicable. We're looking to preserve the geographic integrity of any local neighborhood association boundaries, or local community of interest. So community of interest here is defined as a population that shares common social or economic interests that should be included within a single district for purposes of effective and fair representation. Next slide, please. The third item that we're looking at in order of priority is that council district boundaries should be easily identifiable and understandable by residents, and so to the extent practicable. They should be bounded by natural and artificial barriers such as streets or other boundaries of the city. Item number 4 that we're going to look at, and this is where it does not conflict with all of the preceding criteria. Council districts shall be drawn to encourage geographical compactness in a manner that nearby areas of population are not bypassed in favor of more distant populations. And then item number 5 is any other commission adopted criteria that doesn't conflict with any of these other requirements. As of right now, there's no other commission adopted criteria, but that's if the commission chooses to do so tonight, that is certainly something that can be considered. So those are the items that are sort of in the order of priority that we need to look at when adopting the map. In the next slide, we're going to talk about things that you absolutely should not consider. So Commission shall not adopt council district boundaries for the purpose of favoring or discriminating against a political party. And then this one, big item D, the Commission shall not consider a place of residence of any individual, including any incumbent or political candidate, in a creation of a map. So that's a very important one that I want to make sure that everyone pays particular attention to. So that's what we're looking at as we look at maps tonight. And one of the later items on the agenda tonight is to discuss all of those maps. But once we move forward with that, the next slide that we'll go to here is talking about what is the procedure moving forward. So this is in the City Charter, Article 11, Section 11.10. And this subsection A is what we're doing tonight. So a lot of what this means is we're picking a draft plan to move forward. So the language from subsection A talks about the Commission shall file a preliminary redistricting plan and draft map with the city clerk, along with a written statement of findings and reasons for adoption, which shall include the criteria employed in the process and a full analysis and explanation of the decisions made by the Commission. The city clerk shall publish the preliminary redistricting plan and draft map at least 30 calendar days prior to the adoption of the final redistricting report and final map. So today is December 20th. The final map adoption meeting is January 24th. So we're 34 days out from that. So we need to make sure that we have this map filed with the clerk. And so this item tonight is what we're going to do. We're going to narrow down the map or maps that we want to move forward for further consideration. as well as we can talk later about what the written statement of findings and the reasons for adoption and what that will be. You're not drafting that tonight necessarily. You're just going to be directing, or we'll talk about how we handle that portion of it. So again, we're narrowing it down from 23 maps today down to our recommendation is that you choose between 3 to 5 of them. You'll see the charter language here talks about the commission shall file a preliminary redistricting plan and draft map. It doesn't talk about plural. You're welcome to choose one map moving forward and change that map up over the course of the public hearings. But we would encourage that more than one map be chosen for further discussion as we narrow it down to what will ultimately be one map that is going to be adopted at the January 24th, 2022 meeting. Next slide, please. So after tonight, we're looking at that 30-day calendar period after we publish that draft map with the clerk. And so we're going to hold at least 5 public hearings. We're holding 6 of them, including 1 public hearing in each council district. You see the dates and times for each one of those meetings. And I just wanted to note the meeting on January 15th at the Civic Center is a Saturday at 2 p.m. So in the event that any of the other days do not work out, that is a Saturday meeting that's going to be held here in the council chambers. It'll be televised, and so everything will be available. But you see a big schedule that we have for public hearings to take testimony and meet more about these draft maps. Next slide, please. Then this is talking about the process for final adoption of a map. After having heard comments from the public on the preliminary redistricting plan and draft map, the commission shall adopt a final redistricting report and final map. A commission-adopted final redistricting report and final map has the force and effect of law and is effective 30 calendar days after it's filed with the city clerk and shall remain effective until the adoption of the new district boundaries following the next federal decennial census. So this is going to be maps that are in place for 10 years from now. And so city council can't do anything to change up these maps. They can't do anything to rescind or supersede or revise these. These are in place for the next 10 years. So this is a big move that we're doing tonight to narrow it down to what those are. And then next slide, after we have the final map adoption meeting, after the final map is adopted, the city clerk then moves forward and renumbers the council districts, and the final redistricting report and final map they're subject to referendum in the same manner as ordinances, and that's put in there. That's part of our city charter language. And what that means is if the public is unhappy with whatever sort of final map you guys choose, again, the city council has no ability to rescind that or anything, but a referendum can be filed, and what that would be is they would file that, collect X number of thousand signatures that they would need to get. I believe it's 10% of the registered voters from the prior election. So we're talking you have to gather thousands of signatures to file a valid referendum to take it to a vote to overturn your maps. So just keeping that in mind for future reference, because then the next slide here talks about if the commission does not adopt council district boundaries by the deadline set forth in the city charter, I get to have some fun. And the city attorney gets to immediately file a petition in the Placer County Superior Court for an order adopting city council district boundaries. So that map, if we have to go forward in that process, that map would be used for subsequent elections. But you note until a final redistricting report and final map are adopted by the commission. So ultimately our goal is to have the commission adopt a map. We're on great timeline to get all of that approved and taken care of. And so that's what I wanted to go over tonight, was just talk about redistricting criteria, talk about our timeline moving forward. And next slide, happy to answer any questions anytime from anybody or anybody from the public if you have questions looking forward to this next 30 days and what we're going to be doing. And so happy to answer any questions right now.
Joe, we'll start off with questions from commissioners.
I have a question. I think I know the answer to this, but when we narrow down the maps to the handful tonight, and then we listen to the public during these meetings, do we have any power or authority to adjust the most favorable map if it's just a matter of a couple of blocks or that little corner of a neighborhood, and without having, once we make the adjustment, additional public meetings. I don't want to.
The public meetings are going to be part of that process of refining that map. And so, yes, the map will change. It will be changed up throughout the next 30 days into what will ultimately be one final map with the boundaries that you have on it. So, yes, it will change and will move. And Jed will be able to talk about that as he's, the logistics of how we would do that.
So we can make revisions.
Correct.
To.
Correct. And that's sort of the reason why I'm saying I would not recommend adopting one map, because then you're going to be, or as a draft map, because then you're going to be changing the various boundaries, versus if you move forward with a couple of recommended maps, those will have central themes as to why you like those ones, because they create, whatever reasons that the commission will have. Yep.
Thank you.
And then even tonight, we have an opportunity to tweak things a little bit before we send it out to the public.
Okay.
So if we say, there's a motion for this map if we tweak a couple blocks.
Okay.
I would like to just say, if we're going to pick somewhere between 3 and 5, I do see a common theme among many of the maps with trying to get District 1 almost all on, I-80, and then that little corner is in District 2. And then there's a lot of the other maps that are still sticking with District 3, taking some part off at the north end. So I think if we choose a few maps, we should choose some dissimilar ones so that we get a different flavor to start with, and then we can see which one tweaks the best from there. That was my thinking.
And these maps are all put into categories, and sorry to take any of your thunder, Jed, but, and so we can kind of pick, okay, from this category, we want this map, from this category, we want this map. And Jed, I think Jed's done a great job already, and he'll get his presentation real quick, but I have a question if you all don't mind. Will the draft report language be generic enough where if we do have 4 or 5 maps, we can just...
Yes, and so that is, we can have that discussion right now, because I'm going to sort of leave that up for the commission to choose how they want to do that. There will be a final report that will be created. The information that you receive in your packets on each of these maps, that is an analysis, that is a lot of the information that would ultimately be put into a final report. And then the items that you're putting in your final report are some of the criteria that we went through. We chose this one because it's geographically contiguous and it preserves X number of % of the neighborhood associations, or whatever the reasons are that the commission has. And so moving forward to actually draft that report, we have a couple of options moving forward. The commission can direct staff to draft that report, and that report would become part of the future meetings that we have in January of here's the maps that we're discussing, and here's the report as to why we're choosing those maps, and we can refine it from there down to a final map. So that's kind of option one, just direct staff to prepare that. Another option is, Mr. Chair, you can prepare the report based on the input of everyone and prepare that as a draft map and, circulate that through staff. And another option is create a subcommittee of commissioners here that would prepare the draft plan to be presented and circulated at the next meeting. So I could kind of leave that up to you guys to decide how to do it. I will say in past boards and commissions, like Charter Review Commission, they will direct staff to prepare the reports. But I will tell you that the language that you're seeing in your analysis from Jed, our demographer, as well as the basic information that we just went over in the redistricting criteria, that's the sort of like cut and paste language that we're putting in there as to why we are choosing these specific maps. And so staff's happy to do it, but if the commission wants to 100% hold on to it, you're more than welcome.
Would that be during this agenda item? We would say, is there a motion for staff doing it? Is there a motion for chair? Is there a motion for subcommittee?
Yes, we could do that.
That are under a different item.
I would do that under whatever the next agenda item when we go over all of the maps. But really, it's your choice as to how you want to do it. If timeline-wise, what we're looking at is we have our public meetings coming up. The first one is January 6th at Maidu. And so we would need to get an agenda published at least 72 hours in advance of that, which would have the draft plan in there. So we're really looking at a timeline of if there's a subcommittee created or if anyone on the commission's going to prepare this, we're talking it has to be done sometime this week, and the city offices are closed down from I think it's the 24th all the way through January 3rd. So I guess as I work this out in my head, if you direct staff to prepare this memo, I will be sitting at my desk tomorrow preparing this memo. So,
But that can be left for the next agenda item.
correct.
All right, then moving on to agenda
Hang on,
item.
I want to make sure we take public comment
Oh, sorry,
remotely for this item just in case.
And we're on item number 6.3.
6.2.
Is there any public comment regarding item 6.2, either from those in the audience or by telephone?
And if I could just remind anyone listening that the phone number to call, if you want to call in, is 916-774-5353.
Audience? Is there anyone on the phone, Sonia? Okay.
Thank you.
So we'll go ahead and move on to agenda item 6.3. Phone call?
Okay, I take that. It is my turn.
We
Hang on, Jed, we just got a public comment.
Oh.
So one moment.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right, so next agenda item is 6.3. Jed, if you'd like to go ahead and take it away, there you are.
All right, thanks so much. And let me just get my slides up here for us.
Is 6.3 just the maps, and JED is actually 6.4?
There is a 6.3. So in your packet, there's some supplemental maps that were created that Jed's going to walk through to show. What do we have?
We'll have 6.3 and 6.4.
At your last commission meeting, the commission had asked for the 2020 population by census block and by neighborhood association and the single-family residential adult living communities.
Handy for looking at maps.
All right, Jed?
Great. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and cover those as well. It's kind of in the middle of my presentation here. Okay, let me put this up. And if I could just get a thumbs up that folks can see my slide deck. All
Yes,
right,
we
I
can.
see you, Julia. Great. Okay, well, good evening. Again, I'm Jed Roberts, Senior GIS Analyst with Flow Analytics. Not piping in too far as Julia, but here in Portland, Oregon. And just pleased to, again, be back with the IRC this evening. Tonight, I'm going to present public map submissions that have come in since our last meeting. And I'm also going to provide some analysis to help the IRC in its selection of draft maps for public consideration. So Joe just did a really nice job of covering a lot of elements of the timeline here. Just again, tonight's action will be to select draft maps to be published on the city's website. You saw the schedule for the 6 public hearings, and really the draft maps will be the primary basis for those conversations. And I just wanted to note that these are planned to be in-person hearings and will be staffed by Flow Analytics, our friends at Redistricting Partners. They team with us, and they're based out of Sacramento. And you might remember them from our training sessions earlier in the fall here. So you'll have some in-person support there with printed maps and other materials. We got the question about having the opportunity to revise the draft maps. That is an opportunity that we'll have. I think that the final meeting on January 24th, we'll have a sort of a work session approach there to be able to move any of those final census blocks to get the map that we're looking for. So just a roundup of public map submissions. So through December 6th, we received 23 maps from 12 individuals. So that's all the maps that we received from the district scenario modeler. In the IRC's packet for tonight, there are summary statistics for public map submissions that came in between November 17th and December 6th. Those were 9 maps. Again, just a reminder that maps 4 and 5 were not included for the reasons there, hence the discontinuous numbering in the early set of maps there. And again, the map gallery is still available to review those submissions and will remain up there. So onto the requested supplemental maps. So these next few slides, I'm going to go over those. The first one here, with help from city staff, we were able to identify 4 substantial single-family residential adult communities here. So we're seeing Escaton Village, which is in the Blue Oaks neighborhood, Heritage Solaire, which is in the Solaire and Silver Springs neighborhoods, the Club Del Webb in the West Park neighborhood, and then the entirety of the Sun City neighborhood. The next map provides 2020 population counts by neighborhood. And I've listed here the top 5 neighborhoods by population, which are West Park, Blue Oaks, Fiddymint Farm, Stone Ridge, and Caseburg Kingswood. And I want to point out the note at the bottom that explains that neighborhood boundaries, they don't match perfectly to the census block geographies. So what we've done is we've used the center point of the census blocks to assign them to a single neighborhood, which means that when census blocks straddle neighborhoods, that population is only getting assigned to one of the neighborhoods. And so that leads me to the next map here that shows 2020 population by census block. And so in this map, you have colors and labels to help show the different population counts by block. You see that the majority of the blocks are in the 1 to 300 population range, but we do see a few hot spots. For instance, there is a very populous block of 1,256 people that contains 2 large apartment complexes along Antelope Creek. So that one kind of jumps off the map there. You can also see that there are census blocks with larger populations that do straddle neighborhoods. And I noticed blocks between Junction West and Wood Creek Oaks, between West Park and Fiddymint Farm, between Sun City and Quail Glen. We heard a public comment about that particular block a little bit earlier, and between Pleasant Grove and Foothills Junction. So ultimately, these blocks, they will need to be assigned to just a single council district, even though they do cross over those neighborhood boundaries and some other administrative boundaries. So now I'm going to spend some time walking you through the general categories of maps that we've seen submitted. For the most part, we're seeing variations on just a few themes, which we heard one of the commissioners mention. I'm going to start here with category A.
Jed, can I jump in? Jed, this is Joe.
Yeah.
Can I jump in real quick? Just since this is a different agenda item, I want to pause right here and just stop agenda item 6.3, which was those supplemental maps, and just see if anybody had any comments or public comment on those before we move further with this item 6.4.
There were 3 supplemental maps. One was by senior living area, one was by neighborhood association population, the other one was more of a heat map based on census blocks. Are there any questions regarding those? Observations?
I think, if I may, I think the senior community is missing a bunch. I know my mother lived in Diamond, what was it called? Diamond K Estates, and that's 55 and older.
All right.
And that's not on here. I know they built a big I don't know if it's apartment complex, but senior housing off of Roseville Parkway is brand new.
I believe
Are those
those
not
were
counted?
excluded. Correct. Those were not included because they are. I think they were already included in other multifamily or other market rate multifamily. It's not part of affordable housing. It's not part of anything.
Also, I don't think they had any move-ins until,
Well, yeah.
so there was no count.
Yeah, that too. There's no
Yeah,
count
it's
for
too new.
them. But that was one specific one that we looked at as to, is that considered a community of interest? But that would be it is a 55 and over, but it would also be captured by the multifamily residential community of interest that's been, the map that's been created for that.
We can put it in the back of our mind.
Yes,
that
yes.
it's there.
Yeah, there are a few other multifamily, smaller units too, that I'm aware of.
Any other questions or observations from, there is a phone call?
Good evening. You may make your comments now.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen Crawford, and I'm a resident of Sun City, Roseville. And my comment is that I would like some consideration to be given to the idea that only districts 2 and 4 are going to be coming up for election to city council. And those, to the extent that you can allow voters to vote for their city council representative who were denied a vote at the last city election because they were not in a district up for election. I think that would be beneficial to the community as a whole. In many of the maps, the Sun City community has been moved from District 4 to District 5, and that may be necessary for the centennial and for the census and population issues. But I want that at least to be an issue that is considered as you're going forward, especially on the supplemental maps when you've seen where the senior communities are. So thank you for some attention to that detail, and I'm very interested in hearing the rest of the presentation.
So, Joe, we cannot consider where an incumbent lives,
Correct.
but can we consider consistency of some current lines from a resident perspective?
Of existing lines, certainly. I mean, that's what some of the maps
If
do
they're-
address some of the existing lines, correct.
They're consistent with the current lines, would that be of value? And I think that's what she's getting at.
If that's something that the commission does want to consider as existing districts. I mean, there was a talk at the beginning of using the district scenario modeler with a blank map to start or with existing boundaries to start so that we could tweak them from there. And the decision was, let's start with a clean slate and everybody, start from the beginning. But certainly you can use the existing boundaries as a discussion point to move further.
And Jed, at any point, are you able to overlay the existing boundaries with any maps that we might be talking about to see if there's consistency there?
Yeah, we do have them in the map packets. So for each of the maps that have the full summaries, the very last map shows how that particular submission compares to the existing boundaries. And I'd also note that the full detail maps that will be published after they are selected as draft maps, they will also include the existing boundaries as an overlay.
Thank you. Any other public comment? This is a non-action item, correct?
Correct.
So we can move on to item 6.4?
Correct.
That's still you, Jed.
Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, so thanks, Joe, for making sure we follow procedure there. I'm now going to just spend some time walking through the general categories of maps that we've seen submitted. Like I was saying, for the most part, we're seeing variations on a few themes. I'm going to start with category A, and I'm going to describe the districts that are written here as we look at one of the maps. Just want to make sure that I could capture this in written form for the record. So here's a highlighted map from category A. This is public map 17. And so what we're seeing in this category A is that District 1 is east of I-80 and Sunrise Avenue. That's true of all these maps. District 2 is generally bounded by the railroad on the north, I-80 and Sunrise on the east, and Foothills Boulevard on the west. District 3 is generally bounded by the railroad on the south, I-80 on the east, and there are some variations that we see in Pleasant Grove, in Quail Glen, in Blue Oaks, and in Campus Oaks to draw that western boundary. District 4 is always comprised of Wood Creek Oaks, Foothills Junction, and Sun City. And then there are some variations in the neighborhoods of Junction West, Quail Glen, Campus Oaks, and Pleasant Grove. And then finally, District 5 is generally west of Fittyment Road with some variations in the Blue Oaks and Junction West neighborhoods. And so specifically with this map here, it does a pretty good job of creating compact districts and preserving neighborhoods. While it is on the high side of total deviation, we do see that much of that is attributed to leaving District 5 short of the ideal population. And the intent here from the comments was to leave room for that district's expected growth. So we do see that it does stay under that 10% mark, which is our requirement. So I'm going to jump to category B here, and I just want to point out that I do have all of the maps shown in the way that I had just shown map 17 if we want to look at any of the others from that category in more detail later. So again, I just want to have these descriptions here so they're published with the slide deck, but I will go through those as we're looking at a map. So in category B, highlighting public map 6, and with District 1, we see that it is east of I-80 except for part of Stone Ridge. So that neighborhood is split. District 2 is bound by I-80 on the east, the railroad on the north, and some variations in the Caseburg, Caseburg Kingswood, Foothills Junction, and Wood Creek's Oaks neighborhood on the west. District 3 is really anchored by Stanford, Highland Reserve, and the Harding neighborhoods. It does straddle I-80, again splitting Stone Ridge on the east. It's generally north of the railroad with variations in the Caseburg, Kingswood, Campus Oaks, and Blue Oaks neighborhoods on the west. So as you can hear that I'm having a little bit more to explain with some of these, that just means we're tending to split up a little bit more of the neighborhoods, or the boundaries are just a little bit more complex to explain. District 4 on this map is always comprised, or in this category, I should say, is always comprised of Pleasant Grove, Quail Glen, and Sun City. And we do see some variations in Blue Oaks, Campus Oaks, Fittyment Farm, and the far northwest areas of the city. And then finally, District 5 is always comprised of Junction West and the far southwest neighborhoods that are west of Fittyment Road. And then we see variations in Wood Creek Oaks, Fittyment Farm, and the far northwest areas. So again, the written descriptions here for category C, and I'll just jump into a description of that with the map. Here we're highlighting public map 8 for category C. And what we see here is that District 1 is east of the rail yard and generally south of Douglas Avenue, although Johnson Ranch is split at Eureka Road. District 2 is bounded by the rail yard, Douglas Avenue, and I-80 on the south and east sides. On the west side, it's bounded by the Country Club Drive. Pleasant Grove is the boundary for the most part on the north. And then we have some variations in the Folsom Road and Diamond Oaks neighborhoods. District 3 in Category C is always anchored by Stanford and Harding neighborhoods. It does straddle I-80 and includes areas north of Douglas Avenue and Johnson Ranch neighborhood north of Eureka, along the east side there. Along the south and west, we see just different variations in Diamond Oaks, Pleasant Grove, Campus Oaks, Blue Oaks, and Industrial East, all the Oaks. District 4 is really the core of that is Sun City, Quail Glen, and the far northwest areas of the city. And then Fittiment Farm north of Hayden Parkway as well is in there. And then we do see variations in Pleasant Grove, Campus Oaks, Blue Oaks, and Industrial East. And then finally, District 5 is always Junction West, Wood Creek Oaks, and the far southwest neighborhoods west of Fittiment Road, and then some variations within the Pleasant Grove neighborhood. So Category D here, this is kind of our catch-all category. These were unique maps, I would say unique map configurations that we didn't see necessarily more than once. The exception that I will say is that map 11 did have some other submittals that we saw, although they were just very small variations on that map. And we'll show those variations in the final category, which is next. So I'm going to march through these maps here. And I haven't called it out yet, but in the blue text below the heading here on the slide, you see all the maps that are a part of the category. And I'll have a list for you at the end as well. So public map 3 here, you can see that the District 5, well, let's start with District 1. District 1 is down in the southeast areas that we typically expect. It is splitting Stone Ridge and Olympus Point neighborhoods. And we do see that moving on to District 2, most of the same neighborhoods that we see. We do have kind of a non-compact extension of that district westward into Foothills Junction, Wood Creek Oaks, and Junction West. We see with District 3, a lot of the same areas are covered there. Again, we do have the straddling of I-80 there. I think we see Lead Hill in this district for one of the first times. And just otherwise splitting of Olympus Point and Stone Ridge there. And then moving on to District number 4, we see that many of the same neighborhoods that we've seen with Sun City, Quail Glen, Campus Oaks, Pleasant Groves. It does reach out into the southwest areas of the city there to pick up some of those neighborhoods. And then we see District 5 kind of sitting atop District 4 in this, which is a little bit of a different split than we've seen between District 4 and 5. And then you see we just have the stats there with respect to neighborhoods and total deviation. This one is below the ideal population for District 4, which we're expecting to pick up some additional population. So there's a little bit of room there. District 5 is over the ideal by a little more than 1%. So public map 11, again, this is one that we see some slight variations on in the next category. I'd say, we see District 1 being pretty similar to what we see in Category A for certain. I'd say the main difference here is really the split between District 2 and District 4, and you see District 4 kind of moving down into the south there to pick up the Hilltop Circle neighborhood, so kind of winding around the edge of the boundary of the city there. And then also moving quite far west. I believe that was an attempt to stay with the elementary school district there that does split through Solaire and the very edge of West Park there. Other than that, we're seeing pretty similar configurations. I think we're seeing quite a bit of blue oaks in District 3 that we haven't in some of the other maps. Map 14 here, again, District 1, really similar to what we've seen in some of the others. In District 2, we're seeing that that's more elongated north-south, right? So it's picking up Galleria Creekside Harding instead of the Caseburg Kingswood area. We see that, again, District 4 is kind of elongated east-west, picking up most of those neighborhoods. And then District 3 is really picking up more of Campus Oaks, the northern part of Quail Glen, and Blue Oaks than in many of the other options. And then District 5 is pushed all the way to the northwest areas and neighborhoods. Again, a little bit above the ideal for the far west districts that we're hearing are expected to grow. Public map 15. Again, District 1 looking really similar. District 2 is pretty similar to what we saw on the previous map. We're seeing a bit more of a compact configuration for District 4, really focusing in on the Pleasant Grove, Junction West, Vineyard, Caseburg, Kingswood area there. A little bit different configuration on District 3 there. You see the southern part of Quail Glen being incorporated there. And so having to offset that a bit on the east side there to give up areas of Diamond Oaks and Harding. And then we see that pretty much all the west areas of the city there are in District 5. Just going to motor through the last couple here. So Category D with Public Map 20. This is one where we see the more east-west orientation of District 1, so crossing I-80 there to pick up Cherry Glen, Deals Manor, to go along with Maidu and Johnson Ranch. Again, with just jumping over to District 2, moving that a little bit more to the west, right, and picking up more of Diamond Oaks. Really kind of the core there is with Caseburg, Kingswood. District 3 is shifted a bit more east than we've seen it, right? So going, into parts of Folsom Road, down into Johnson Ranch, picking up all of Lead Hill. And then with District 4, we see it actually going completely north to south across the city, which we haven't seen in too many, if any, of the other maps that have come through. And then with District 5 containing all of the far west areas. And then finally for Category D here, Public Map number 25. Similar story that we've seen with District 1, a fairly similar configuration for District 2 that we've seen. I think with District 4 here, we see it pushing into Diamond Oaks a little bit further east than we've seen it before. And again, that with District 3, we then see that, it needs to come down into the southern part of Quail Glen to make up for some of that population. And then District 5 really picking up all of Sun City and everything to the west of Fittingman Road. And so moving on to category E here. So these are a handful of maps that just, first off, they didn't meet the population deviation requirement. So we're not even going to be looking at those ones because they won't meet our basic requirement. And then the rest of them are really pretty small variations on maps that we've seen mentioned already. I am going to run through those really quick though. So this one I just want to highlight quickly is just a variation on map 11. See just a few little changes here from map 11 that are noted here in the author comments. Map 22 is a small variation of map 12 that we've seen in an earlier category. Same with map 23. And then map 24 back to being a small variation on map 11. And so with that, I'm actually going to jump to this last slide here that just gives you a breakdown of those categories, the 5 categories that we've gone over here. Again, with category A, I think that's the configuration that we've seen I think most consistently with enough variation within it. Category B, maps 6 and 7. Category C, maps 8 and 16. Category D was a little bit of our catch-all. And then category E was the maps that didn't meet the ideal or the minimum population deviation, and then the very small variations on maps 11 and 12. And with that, just going to do a quick reminder here on next steps. So again, draft plans, our recommendation is really to try and contrast the key issues that the IRC has identified and just different configurations of the districts. That tends to produce good public input. And again, draft plans, they're not going to be set in stone tonight. They can be changed in response to public input before one of them is adopted. And just, we talked a little bit about, getting this posted up for the necessary posting timeline. We need to get these maps posted by December 23rd at the latest, including the description that Joe was talking about. And they will be formally posted to the city's website. They will include a very detailed map that has all of the roads labeled. It's a large format map. I think 24 by 34 inches type map. We'll have all those summary statistics, and we'll include the author's map description if it is in fact a map that has been moved forward exactly as it was submitted by the public. And so with that, I'm just going to move to this last slide here, and I can leave that up, and I can just open it up for questions, or to Chair Frank, if you'd like to take it from here.
Okay, thank you, Jed. So we'll have questions regarding the presentation of agenda item 6.4 from the commissioners. We'll open it up to public comment, and then the commissioners can come back, and I'd like to see what your preferences are. One way we could do this is to look at each category, and commissioners would make a motion saying, I move that this map be considered for public review. And we can pick one from each category. You can pick multiple ones from each category. That's whatever you'd like to do. So we'll start off with questions for Jed regarding his presentation.
I have a question about, earlier you mentioned, and this was actually mentioned by one of the members of the public, that some of the neighborhoods are having a little bit of split because of the way that the census blocks are drawn. So, and I noticed when I look inside of the reports that we have, it'll say, 92% of neighborhoods preserved. Is that information reflected when the census blocks are the things doing the split? Am I making sense?
Yeah, so the way that those census blocks get assigned, like I was talking about a little bit earlier, is there's a center point of them, and they get assigned to the neighborhood in the map tool. So that's an all or nothing deal, right? So if you do have a census block that, you know, is kind of 50-50 and might have, say, 700 people in it, the way the map tool is calculating that preservation is based on the center point of that block and assigning all 700 of those of the population to that particular neighborhood. So it's not going to capture, you know, that split in the block, or else we would it would be impossible to actually preserve nearly as many of the neighborhoods as we would like to. So again, center point of the block is what is being considered.
Okay, so an example of this would be like on map 15, there's a little sliver. It's right where we have the district boundary drawn. There's a street called Treasure Lane. Half of Treasure Lane is one district. The other half of Treasure Lane is in another district. It's splitting the neighborhood. It's probably maybe 30 homes or something like that. It's not very many, but it's like something that we wouldn't see if we were looking at the report, because when you click on the map tool and you look at the neighborhood, it doesn't show it. So that's just something for us to like think about moving forward, because it might say that it's preserved, but there may be missing homes missing from it. So I'm just bringing it up so everybody knows like what it, like directly what it means. It's just we're missing a little tiny bit.
There might be a neighborhood association that's split, but the part that's split off doesn't have anybody that lives in it. So, you know, but it makes more sense to have it in a different district. So right now, yeah, looking kind of conceptually at different designs. Any questions for Jed?
I've got a question, although I don't know if it's for Jed. Is there any way we can summarize the 4 community of interest submissions we got before we go into the discussion? Just since I haven't gotten an email with them, or I know they're there physically, but just so I know what was submitted.
Yeah, and I actually have not seen those myself either yet. I think they're hot off the presses.
Okay.
Who has those?
Is that the ones in the packet that you gave us? Yes.
After the packet.
Right.
But it's an updated, I think it's an updated packet since they came in.
I mean, it looks to me like 3 of them were pretty much coming from one idea or a group of people who talked about it, maybe. It's talking about map 6, 8, and 16.
Sure. I will summarize them. Sorry, I just wanted to go through them real quick to make sure that, yes, indeed, they were all similar to that. So, Julia, the community of interest and public comment testimony that we received a comment from a resident, Aldo Panesci, that is recommending map 6 as the best map, and also comments about map 6, 8, or 16 that help keep Roseville together. And so they hope, this party hopes that those 6, 8, and 16 get moved forward for further review. Michael Wagner was another person that submitted public comment, and it seems as though map 6 is their preference that best preserves the continuity and stability of the city. The next public comment received was from Carol Garcia, who recommends voting in favor of map number 6 as the preferred map, but they would also be in favor of maps 8 or 16. And the other public comment received is from the Sun City Roseville Community Association, and we received their recommendation for public map number 6 as well.
And except for the Sun City one, those other ones don't really speak to communities of interest. It's just their map preference.
Correct, just their map preference.
So which ones, do we have anything that talked about new communities of interest that they wanted to have considered, or?
No new communities of interest in those. Correct. No new ones.
So the ones that we generally have are kind of historical or when the development occurred, the age of the neighborhood. I think we have police districts, school districts, senior living, neighborhood associations. Help me out. It's in any
Historical districts.
Historical,
districts?
yeah.
There's been some intermittent mention of renters.
Which ones?
Renters or multiple.
Renters,
That would be
multifamily.
hard, because they're
Right.
scattered all
They're all
over.
over the place. They're not in a cluster.
And looking at, even though it hasn't been called out by anybody from the public, looking at the heat map, you can kind of see where maybe more agricultural or future development is, or industrial where there won't be any development. We can kind of see, where that is, and that might, again, be in the back of our minds, even if we don't have a drop down on the tool for it. But there weren't any additional communities of interest.
Correct.
Questions from commissioners?
Thank you for summarizing that.
All right, open it to public comment from those in the audience, and I'll see if there's anybody on the phone. No one on the phone? Anyone from the audience? Again, regarding the different categories, conceptually, which you might like?
Yes, thank you. Again, Einer Maish, Stone Ridge resident. The categorization is a little bit different than what how I categorize them, so it'll be a little disjointed. Hopefully, we'll get through it. If we could put up map 8. My earlier comments about sort of defining age of development was really a prelude to saying that I thought that all of the maps that use Interstate 80 as a dividing line on the east side and put the much older neighborhoods south of Douglas Boulevard in the same city district as the neighborhoods north. In other words, they put Stone Ridge and they put, Oakmont in the same neighborhood. I think what you're doing is you're really splitting neighborhoods in a way that that is not necessary. This map, number 8, doesn't do that. So it takes all of the development south of Douglas, and I realize as you get farther east, you get part of Johnson Ranch, which is a little bit newer, but it keeps a lot of that old historic post-World War II development in District 1 together. And then in District 3, it really takes that development that occurred over the last 30 years that started in the east, well, it didn't start in the east, but runs from the east in Stone Ridge and Olympus Point and the northern part of Johnson Ranch, and along the Roseville Parkway corridor, that development that occurred north of the old city center, and keeps that together. And so I really think that at least for the east side, map 8 does a far better job than any of the maps that use Interstate 80 as the dividing line and putting north of Douglas and south of Douglas into the same map. It's not a perfect map. If I had my choice, I would change it a little bit. I think that the areas west of Fitiment should be kept together as much as possible and separate from the Sun City development and the development that runs west of Sun City. And so, if I would, this would be a great map to put in as a start. If you wanted, in my opinion, to improve the map, take some of that purple up in the far northwest corner and you'd put that in 5, and you'd drop down into Wood Creek Oaks in order to expand and make up for the difference. But this is a good map. 6 and 7, the other category. So this is the best example, I thought, of category C in your new categories. 6 and 7 is a category B, which I think that the Sun City folks, as I've talked to them, think does a much better job from their perspective of handling that sort of, not the very western edge, but the intermediate western edge. Yeah, that one. And that's a little closer to what I was talking about. And so this is also a map that I would recommend that you carry forward. Between the two, I like 8 the best, but 6 has got, 6 doesn't do nearly as good a job as can be done on the east side. In other words, if you started with this one because you liked it on the west, I would try to make some adjustments in order to bring that District 1 boundary down to Douglas Boulevard. But so those are my suggestions and recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from the audience? We have a phone caller. Let me take it now.
Good evening. You may make your comments now.
Hi, this is Lisa Larkin, calling from the safety of my own home. Thank you, I appreciate this. So the couple of maps that were just suggested, one of the submissions that was done by email, I think it's appropriate to know that one of the submissions that was done by email was done by a political consultant who makes his living getting city council members or supervisors elected. So I think you should consider that. If you could put up map 8, well, you don't even have to put it up. Map 8 actually divides Blue Oak, Campus Oaks, Diamond Oaks, Fitment, Folsom, Highland Reserve, my neighborhood, Johnson Ranch, Pleasant Grove, Roseville Heights, and Sierra Vista. That's a lot of division going on in map 8. And then on map 6, that one is missing the chunk between Washington and Atlantic. The little corner wedge there that's missing on a lot of the maps, which is a community of interest. I've heard public comment. It also divides Fittimus Farms, Catesburg, Kingswood, Wood Creek, and Wood Creek Oaks. So I would say that map 6 is better than map 8 because it divides a lot less neighborhoods, but it would still need to have the Washington Atlantic corner there that's left out for that division, for that area. So those are my comments. And also it was nice last time where the consultants had listed previously the maps that met the highest level of the voter requirements and listing. It was helpful, I think, where it said, like on this one, 91% of the communities are preserved, and map 8 had 70-something% of the neighborhoods. I think that's a very helpful thing, and I appreciate them doing that. Thank you.
And just real quick to jump on to Lisa's point that she made there, if we can pull that map back up, just any of the maps, this was the information that I was talking about earlier, in that when we prepare the report for the background as to why we are adopting certain maps, you see all the various information that Jed has provided on here. It talks about deviation, it talks about the neighborhoods that are preserved, it talks about what the author comments are, and then as well as any other comments that we would have or that the public would have that we would incorporate into creating a final, plan for that draft map. So this is the sort of information that we'd be pulling forward into a final plan.
Jed, can you tell us the percent of neighborhoods preserved for maps 1, 6, and 7? I didn't see those.
Can do. Yeah. So we've got 89% for map 1. And you said, what was the next map?
6 and 7.
6 and 7. Of course, they're chronological. So we got 91% for 6 and 89% for 7.
And again, those are just rough numbers.
They are, yeah. I unfortunately can't see the commissioner's name with the small screen, but the commissioner has hit on it a couple times that I think we really rely on your expertise on the ground to be able to point out, hey, with these split blocks, like let's make sure that we're getting the balance of those blocks into the neighborhoods that is most appropriate if the center point is not the most appropriate spot.
Then on map 8, you had 78%, I think, of the neighborhood associations, right?
Question for Jed. On map number 1, for under District 4, it says that it is not contiguous. And when I look at the map, at the very northernmost part of the map, there's a little chunk there that is that what's making it not contiguous? I tried to zoom in and I looked and it said the block had 0 in it. Is that what's triggering that to happen?
Yes, so there is this block that's in Quail Glen that drifts up into the very northeastern part of the Sun City neighborhood. And then it cuts off from the larger part of the neighborhood, a small block that sits just in the very northeastern corner of that neighborhood from the rest of the neighborhood. So if somebody's trying to preserve all of the census blocks that are assigned to Sun City, they would get that result because the big block that kind of drifts in from Quail Glen is assigned to Quail Glen. If that makes sense?
Yeah, that little pink spot there that's assigned to number 4 is just a landscape lighting block. So there's no homes or anything on it. So it would just have to go with the other one to be more contiguous looking. But then it messes up the Sun City thing. And you see this throughout several places on these various maps where there's little funky things that don't belong as the way they're called. So.
Yeah, I find it really helpful to look at that heat map to help point out some of those too. And you're right, it's actually a 0 population block up in the very northeast corner of Sun City.
It wouldn't be something like, I guess I'm trying to, it's not a bad thing that it looks like that, right? Am I making sense? It's not that big of a deal. If we're drawing a map and we have that and it has 0 population in it, it can exist that way if that was something we wanted.
But it has to be contiguous.
Contiguousness is more important than the neighborhood on that little thing, I would think, to make it look better.
Yes, we would need to clean that up.
Okay.
So we would probably need to assign that over to District 3 on this map.
Okay. Thank you. That's perfect. Thank you.
Or District 5. Yeah.
So I have a question about category E. They don't meet the deviation. I'm misunderstood or didn't quite understand what that meant. They're not to be considered?
Actually, the ones that I did show, they do meet. I believe it is maps 10, 13, and maybe one other. I have to go back slides here. I actually didn't show those maps at all.
Can we look at 18?
Yeah, let's go ahead to that category.
And again, even the maps that are in that category.
10, 13, and 19.
I'm sorry, Jeff.
Sorry, Chair Frank.
The maps on those categories, if any commissioner wants to make a motion to still use those with changes, then we can make the changes. I'm sorry, Jed, I interrupted you.
Yeah, I'm curious about the neighborhood associations and that percentage on number 18.
Yeah, 87%.
Thank you.
Okay, are there any questions? Any more questions? What I'd like to do is maybe go through each category and have kind of a little bit of a free-for-all and see which ones you like, but then also with the purpose of making motions to say, I would like this map, or I move this map to be presented to the public as one of the 3 to 5 maps. And you could have multiple maps from one category, you can have no maps from a category. Does anybody have any thoughts or preferences? I'm sure you've been staying up late at night making lists of which ones you like. And
Can you put the categories back up? I have the numbers, but I don't have the categories.
you hear that, Jed?
So I would suggest we use 21 from this category.
Category A?
Look at that again.
Category A.
Category.
What is it about category, or map 21 that you like, or that you maybe would like to change a little bit?
98% of the neighborhoods preserved is what sort of stood out in my mind.
Any observations on map 21 that any of the other commissioners would like to point out?
Yeah, I think well, maybe this isn't the map to do that, but at least one of the maps, we need to find a way to have the Diamond Oaks area a little more gathered together, or the historic areas just south of it, because there's a weird dividing line there in Diamond Oaks that half of, it's a huge block, but half of the top half of it is a block of homes on one side of the street that's along the golf course, and the bottom half of it is the historic neighborhood. So we either need to pick, we need somebody who kind of wants to advocate for that and say, where does it belong? Does it belong with Diamond Oaks, with the north end? Does it belong with the historic Sierra Vista? Because there are homes there with that.
So again, I think with any discussion, we can say, I like map 21, I move that map 21 with a change to that area.
The other thing
Motion
about
include
21 and a lot of the other maps is there's, and I think Jed talked about it before, there's a little area there in Pleasant Grove that does the same thing. It splits up a neighborhood and gathers together part of one neighborhood and part of another neighborhood and sticks it in one block, and you have to choose so to clean that up so there's not these little pieces of blocks in between.
I would agree. That's the one thing I was noticing is the Pleasant Grove area as well.
And there's
Looks like a little C around it.
I looked at that. There's a pretty easy way to do it, because right along what is that street?
Well, can I say Blue Oaks is divided in two, right? I did not see that before. Maybe we should go back to category A and rethink this.
Well, again, it's kind of up to you if you want to move that this.
I didn't move. No.
You don't want to move, okay. And even just on 21, the way that some of District 3 goes into District 4 and then into District 5, it makes it so that part of District 3 is not really contiguous with other parts of District 3. That's my.
I like one better in that category than I do 21.
I like one.
So, category A, do you have a?
Well, just another comment on that map. I feel like when you're getting to standard deviations that are above 8, when 10's the limit, I feel like we're kind of flirting with that upper end, and I've seen a lot of maps that are floating around 5, 6, and even a little bit lower.
Absolutely. Well,
It'd be a lot
that's where
harder
the
to
fine
make any
tuning.
changes on this.
Yeah, when you get, you're sort of already, turn the dial all the way up on the standard deviation from the get-go.
So is there a motion to put 21 on the list? Is there a motion for any of the other ones in category A?
Can we look at 12?
12?
Let's go back to the categories.
There's map 12. Would you like to speak to it, or?
Well, I remember that one from the previous meeting. I had written that one, from what Jed had said, was, a really good map. I did like, as somebody said, too, how in our previous meeting, he kind of outlined the ones that he gave us our top list that met that criteria, but that was one of the ones I thought. So since we're talking about him, I thought, I'd like to see what everybody else is thinking.
I like continuity on that one for sure. Nice, clean lines, I think.
Again, doing something with historic Sierra Vista.
Exactly what I was
even
just
maybe
gonna say.
I think one of the other maps, I think it might be one on that little toe that comes out for District 5 into Junction West. In map 1, it just goes straight down.
Yeah.
So it's basically the same, well, maybe not that same.
One thing I'm noticing on 12 now, if we go back to 12. So there looks like I didn't notice it on the one in my binder next to, I can't see what that says.
So Junction West.
Junction West. Junction West, there's a little bit of orange where there's the purple.
And Blue Oaks is divided again.
Yeah, I'm not excited about that split up north in Blue Oaks.
So
I think we also should look at public map number 1, also with the input from, I think it was Arcona, asking us, like, if they went through a process to endorse this map and specifically asked us to look at that Blue Oaks division. I don't know, Jed, if you can speak to, like, looking at those population numbers, because this is a high deviation, like, is there much we could do there, or would we need to just make this a draft map and then let people have, the few weeks to play with it?
Yeah, I think for this particular map here, with District 5 being already 5.9% below the ideal, like that's a big chunk of that 9.5% that we're seeing. And so what you can do is work to get that a little bit closer to the ideal, which I think in keeping as close to the configuration that we've got here, you're talking about taking more Blue Oaks. But I don't know off the top of my head where District 3 sits with respect to its comparison to the ideal, because we can't take too much away from District 3 there.
Is there anybody on the commission
District 3 is at 3.6.
that lives in Blue Oaks? Do you live in the Blue
I
Oaks?
do.
Yeah, okay.
So that could work.
I would suggest that we really consider, like you mentioned at the beginning, a series of maps, the handful of maps that are dissimilar, so that when we get the input, we can make hopefully smaller tweaks that will make it fit for everyone.
Right.
So this one, although I may or may not like it, I think map number 1 is definitely Arcona's idea of a valuable map. So I would think we would include this one as one of the handful, to the 5 or 4, 3, whatever.
Are you making a motion?
I think that,
Oh, go
I was
ahead.
just to say the advantage of 1, 2 over a couple of the others is that the District 3 is over enough so that you could put some of that into District 5 and be able to make it
Right,
work.
there's some logical breaking points
Yeah.
in Blue Oaks, compact neighborhoods that don't have anything to do with the next neighborhood other than they were developed as Blue Oaks.
Well, if we kind of go in categorical order and numerical order within categories, is there a motion to put map 1 at least in the pot?
I would motion that.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so put map 1. Can you show category A again?
Yes. Before we move further, all of these are going to have to be by roll call vote. So I know we're doing all in favor, say aye, but
Can we do a roll call vote of all of them at the end?
Sure.
either that, or I would not make a formal motion. We have in our mind, all right, number 1 is sitting there now if we want to move on. And so ultimately the final motion.
Once we have all of them, then we make a motion.
Yeah, or
for
we
that
could do it the
package.
way that we just did it just now of, motion second, and then go through roll
Okay.
just to be able to create number 1.
We already made a motion and a second.
Yep.
So
Borowiak?
for map 1.
So we're going to do it without having our whole list of the ones to choose from, narrowing down.
whether
We're
we
not
wanna put
narrowing
map
down, we're
1.
just going to start picking.
This is a motion to include map number 1 in our discussion moving forward as a final, or as a draft map to move forward toward
Okay,
final.
and I just wanted to be clear, so are we doing it just for this one since we did the motion, and then we are going to
And then we'll kind
collectively
of go back and then
select
we
some?
could even go,
Couldn't we, or
right
we
to
could
left.
withdraw the motion, couldn't we? Isn't the person?
Well, if we do
isn't
withdraw the
person
motion, then we're
who-
going to have to figure out how we put them in the pot. So we could go like individually and you could say, I want these maps.
I just kind of would like to talk about some of them first collectively, and then maybe we can wheedle down some, or all collectively come together on some.
Is there any more discussion on map 1? Okay, can you show the categories again? Does anybody want to discuss 2, 9, 12, 17, or 21? And we can always go back to them too if we're rushing through it too fast.
Just for the record, there was a motion, just going back to the original, there was a motion and a second to talk about moving map number 1 forward. I don't know if we want to
Haven't
withdraw that
voted.
motion or if the chair wants to just move that forward as a further discussion when we call them all together.
Withdraw the motion for now. Do you want to just withdraw your motion for now?
Yes.
Have further
Makes it
discussion
easier.
then instead of a vote, and we're going to just keep talking about the maps to move forward. So we can continue talking about map number 1. We can continue talking about any of the maps. I just
On map 1, any comments on the other maps in category A? Or request that any of them be pulled to be part of the pot?
I like map 12. And then as far as the neighborhoods, you have Blue Oaks and Junction West. We can pull that map up, please. Jed. Yep. Yeah. Now, I know we looked at this a little bit ago, and just wondering if we'd have any room to make some corrections there with Junction West or Blue Oaks.
And again, you would not have historic Sierra Vista in District 2. You'd have it in District 3. In this map.
But it can still be tweaked a little bit.
So map 1 gets rid of that little toe in Junction West from 5, and it also has historic Sierra Vista. Are there other differences between 1 and 2 and 12 that you prefer 12? Because if we get rid of that toe in Junction West and then add Sierra Vista, you basically not entirely have map 1.
Yeah, I feel like 1 and 12 are quite similar. You can almost go with either one
Yeah.
and tweak them a little bit to.
You can put 12 in there.
You know,
You know,
but
you can-
I think by having 1 in, you sort of by default almost have 12 in as well.
They're very similar.
That one
Well,
Quail Oaks and then the other little thing down at the
And
bottom.
Sierra
Just eliminate
And you can use map 12 to almost guide some of the iterations of map 1. So maybe we look at shifting from Blue Oaks into Junction West. It can definitely influence where map 1 goes.
Map 12 has less of a deviation than map 1, and more of the neighborhoods are preserved.
You want to go
We're
put?
tweaking, right?
So you go with 12 and not 1, I think it.
But I think oh, sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I think we send a good message to the community, though, if we go, if we're choosing between 1 and 12, saying they're basically the same, I think we send a good message by listening to Arcona's request that they voted, they're endorsing this map, and they are requesting changes. So then we start with that and we make adjustments.
But I think it'd also be okay to put in map 12.
We're going to make adjustments no matter what, because they're similar.
And then after we go through all of them, we say, gosh, we've got 17 maps.
Yeah.
You know, do we want to cut them down? Then we can say, okay, maybe 1 or 12 isn't, we don't need both of them.
Right.
But for now, is it okay to put it in the pot?
I would say no. I would say eliminate 12, since 1 and 12 are so much similar. Let's look at the other maps
Right.
and see, because if we say 1 and 12 are in the discussion, then we're eliminating another map that might address other issues.
So procedurally, how do we get next step? Does someone have to move that we do
Table
put
it to
12
talk
or
to the
don't put
next-
12?
I'd say, we can keep 1 and 12 in play. Let's move on.
Right.
And if we go to the other categories and we only find 1 that we like, well, then 1 and 12 can go in, and that's only 3 maps. If we move on and we have 5, then maybe we go back and pick 1
Do I
and
have
12.
discretion to just say we're going to put 12 in there for now?
Yeah, we can throw everything in for now. I mean, the categories are really just more for your convenience of seeing which ones are grouped similarly, but please consider all maps individually, at your will.
I think there's value in having 1 and 12 in the pot for now. Are there any others from category A? Moving on to category B, which are map 6 and 7. Which of these, if any, would you like to add to the pot?
I prefer 7. I think it could also use a little, possibly a little changes there. Neither one of those deal well with the historic area, and I think it splits up Caseburg. Number 6 splits up Caseburg, does it not?
Yeah, it does.
And
I'd go with you with number 7.
Yeah.
And do we have to pick one from each category? Because I thought the public comments about 8 over 6, like what is the distinction in these categories between, like what's the distinguishing factor of 8 versus those?
Well, let's see. I wonder.
Mostly,
8, 6, and 18?
I think District 1.
Yeah, District 1.
I think it had to do with the east side of Roseville, east of I-80.
More 1 and 2 is the issue. A little bit of 3. One thing I do like about both is that the growth, the future growth of Roseville, West Roseville in particular, is something that I don't believe should be addressed by one council member.
Right.
I think it should be addressed by at least 2, so you have, I just think if we say one district is 5 and 5 is going to control all the growth, then the deviation's going to have to be really low for them, because in the future, that might be the most populated area of Roseville, and then all of a sudden, District 5 is...
Well, I think aside from that, people are best served to have a little more representation. An area of high growth is going to have a lot of things going on that people want to be involved in. And if there's only one representative there, that's one voice, like you say. But if you've got it in 2, like what map number 7 does, then you've got two people representing the growth issues that are unique to that situation.
So with map 6, the growth in District 5 doesn't leave, it has 2.5%. That's, I think, the highest of all 5 districts right now. Doesn't leave any room for growth. But also with number 6.
We're really not supposed to take that into account, though. We're looking at now, not 2 years from now. Or
Is there anything that prohibits us from looking at that?
Nope.
It's just that we don't know exactly what that growth is going to look like, but
We're guessing.
Correct.
It seems
It's
like-
you're guessing on the growth, and we're looking at census data, and really we're looking at 10 years ago compared to now. That district has
10
seen.
years from now,
Right.
we're
Correct.
guessing.
Yeah.
But I think we also know from the city, and if we watch the council members or in the planning commission, that West Roseville is estimated to have 20,000 new homes in the next year or 2. 20,000 new homes with
That's a lot of
two
redistricting.
people is going to be an awful lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's going to throw everything off for the next few elections. And I think that's not appropriate.
So
That's
in-
just my opinion,
in
but I don't
District
think it's
6
appropriate.
doesn't leave very much room for growth, map 6 doesn't leave very much growth, if any, for District 5. It does keep some of the current lines of the current districts in place. So it looks, there's less of those little diagonal lines. There's less change. I'd be comfortable with map 6 if we fix that area of historic Sierra Vista. And then,
I don't know that you can, because you'd be wanting to move it
from 3.
from 3 to 2.
If you look at map
Highest.
8, I think it takes, puts historical Sierra Vista, I think.
Yeah, it
District
does
2.
have.
It doesn't sound like anybody's supporting any of these. I don't really none of them, they're all medium on my list. I just, they're not
8
mine.
seems to meander, District 3 seems to meander and cover everything that any other district doesn't have, to me.
We're putting
But-
3 to 5 in a pot to allow public comment on these. We're not making decisions on which, you know, we're,
7.
I think we all agree we're going to be tweaking them one way or another.
Sure.
And-
We still have a lot of maps to go through,
Still have a lot of
too.
maps.
So can
Anybody
we,
like to
can we
keep-
skip category B and then come back to it if anyone feels passionate about it and just
Yeah,
move
I
on
would-
to category C?
I would go with that. I would agree with that.
That makes sense.
I think 8 belongs.
I mean, before we do that, I mean, I think with map 6, I was supportive of map 6 a month ago. I like map 6. I think it could be dialed in to reduce that total deviation number even lower and give District 5 a little more room for future growth, maybe by pulling 4 down a little bit. 5 right now kind of has a toe sort of that sticks to the east. Some of that could be moved north, which would, I think, adjust the numbers a little bit. So I'm in favor of 6, and there has been public testimony in support of 6, and we're
And again,
encouraging the public to come and speak, and some have, and I put a lot of weight on the Sun City Roseville Community Association too, for them to come forward and ask for 6.
and also
Yeah.
just the
I would-
changes that you suggested are kind of reflected in map 20 as well.
In map 20 as well.
Yeah, and just as someone who lives in the Caseburg-Kingswood Neighborhood Association, like our neighborhood association activated in response to our neighborhood association being split up. So I would just throw that out there about map 6.
So it doesn't sound like we're putting map 6 in right now. Do we want to put map 7 in right now, or do we want to come back to them? See kind of how many others we pick.
I would put 6 in and table map 7, just to make the decision.
Are you guys okay with him? Or-
I like 6. I've heard a couple of people here say they like 6.
Let's pop 6 into the pot?
I also like 6, yeah.
Okay. And not 7. Okay, so map, are we in category C now?
Yes.
Which starts with map 8? Thoughts?
Which other ones are in that category?
16.
I like 8, but I think it's very similar to 6, so.
Well, not between 4 and 5 there. It's pretty, I mean,
Oh, yeah, the 4 and 5.
because you're going to have growth up in that northeast-west area as well as just the big block in number 5 there.
I think it also does a good job with Diamond Oaks near Caseburg-Kingswood. Now, I know it's splitting up Diamond Oaks, but I know one of the big things the city's doing is that Washington project, and our neighborhood association's been getting a ton of questions about that, so those together would make sense for me.
And then it speaks to what the public was saying earlier about the south of Douglas staying in one district. I think I'd probably like to see on the Folsom Road Neighborhood Association, maybe District 2, just going all the way over to the 80.
Yeah, I would too.
I have a question about the being contiguous and the issue of Highway 80 and the rail yard. Am I right to say that 80 would, in map 8, be not contiguous because District 1 is split by the freeway?
But there are bridges and tunnels that connect.
And that's okay?
That's okay. Correct.
I think I like
And
16
it's-
better than 8.
What's the word that I can never remember? As much as practicable?
To the extent practicable, yes. So there is also language about talking about waterways and, bridges and ferries and things like that. But yes, for purposes of the highway, if there's bridges, tunnels, regular ways of getting back and forth, then that would create a contiguous area, even though it's separated.
Thank you.
16 also fixes some of the Folsom Road issue.
Right.
So in a lot of ways, I like it better than 6, or better than 8.
Yeah, I think there probably could be some tweaking on that, but it is very similar, and the number
better, I
is
think.
good on that.
It's one of the ones that's not contiguous. So there would be some tweaking.
Maps 8 and 16 were a father-son duo, where the son was
There was a contest.
competing with the dad to get a better deviation. But I think that was at the expense of the contiguity. On map 8, if you can go back to that, sorry.
That's funny.
So for me, like with Campus Oaks, that little part that's in District 4, I think is fine because nobody lives there. And there's a natural creek that divides it. If you put that little piece where nobody lives entirely in Campus Oaks, then the neighborhood's preserved number would go up.
Oh, I see.
Right? But there's nobody that lives there.
Oh, there's construction there right now. Yeah, there's people there.
It will be.
In that Campus Oaks, there's apartments that are already lived in.
Bottom left corner? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
behind the Nugget. It's like south of the Nugget there, Nugget Market. So that's another area of growth, actually, because there's empty lots and,
So even if there are people living there, though,
yeah.
I think it probably fits more with Quail Glen and Pleasant Grove than Campus Oaks, because not a whole lot of people live in Campus Oaks to begin with.
Right. Yeah, I think it could go either way.
And there's a creek that divides it.
16's got almost no deviation.
And we have a little room with a deviation.
So what do you all think about map 8? Should we put it in the pot?
I think it's worth putting
Warner and
in.
John, do you guys have any thoughts or comments?
Not about that, but if I could say something else about what we're calling core neighborhoods.
Core?
Core neighborhoods are sort of, kind of ties in with what Einar was talking about, sort of the historical areas. And so I'm going to say Roseville Heights, Vineyard, Los Cerritos, Sierra Vista, Folsom Road, and Hillcrest are sort of what you call the inner city core neighborhoods. So, I mean, they're kind of all similar time of development, so I mean, that kind of ties in. It's not necessarily a community of interest, but we're really referring to it as core neighborhoods. And, that's what I was looking at, just at a lot of the maps. I'd like to have all the core neighborhoods potentially in one district. The inner city neighborhoods are all in the same district.
Then you'd have to have all of District 1 on the east side of 80.
Well, but then let's say Kirby side, for example, is kind of an older neighborhood as well. So I mean, that's on some of them. I would say Kirby.
And I think there are some maps that have been proposed that do that.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
They keep
Kirby
all
side.
those.
So basically, those
District
7
two.
neighborhoods are what I call core neighborhoods, all developed in the 40s, 50s.
And again, I think there are some maps that do that.
I think the differences between 16 and 8 are so small as to be, like, we should just pick the one that has the least corrections to be made, which would be 16. And then if we want to tweak it from there, we probably could clean it up so that the shapes are a little bit better there in the second, in the center.
How do we can we do 8/16 and just we tweak it? Given everyone's
a hybrid.
comments and concerns.
Well, I would choose 8 over 16. 16 is not contiguous, so in my opinion, we would need to do less changes to 8, which is already contiguous.
I also think we've done a good job of really listening to people who have submitted their public comments. And if 8 and 16 are equal, and we've had, a lot of people talking about 8, then I'd say we should include it in the pot.
Any opposition to putting number 8 in the pot? All right, let's put 8 in the pot. And again, we can always take maps out, put other maps back in.
And not number 16, just number 8?
Correct.
Make sure, okay.
I did have a question, if you don't mind. Knowing there's communities of interest that everybody's talked about, whether it's school districts or police districts or whatever it may be, aside from that topic, how is that going to be related to all of these decisions that are being made? If they're not, is that just we're waiting for the public shows of that because they're not overlapped? And I was just kind of curious how that.
Yeah, if people say, hey, we think school districts is the most important thing, and overwhelmingly, then maybe we shift our priority of neighborhood associations to school districts. Although in the charter, neighborhood associations is the first one
Right.
mentioned. And then we are still the members of the public, so we can always, at those meetings, tweak things based on what we hear or just our own feelings.
But everything on the maps that are being selected now could be chopping all of that other stuff up that hasn't been overlapped onto this yet. I guess, I just thought I'd ask.
Well, I would hope that the people who made the maps took into consideration the school districts, and in some of the descriptions they even put in there, why they drew them that way.
Okay.
Well, and in the package in front of us, there's tables that speak to school districts, compactness measurements, race, ethnicity.
Sure.
Total, so there is some information there, but definitely if you go into the program, you can see all that stuff online for sure.
Okay.
And I think the neighborhood associations kind of coincide with both police and the school districts. I think that's how the neighborhoods have kind of operated for years and years, as I understand it, so I hope it's addressed.
And I don't know, do police districts get changed?
They have, yeah.
They're going to have
They
to
just
add.
added a beat last year.
Yeah.
All right, so right now we have,
Sorry, just one thing to add to what you said, John. Maybe if we're picking 4 or 5 maps that get printed on, 2x3 paper,
Right.
that there's maybe more room, or we have an additional kind of information sheet that goes along with it that has everything there that's on the website all listed out. So as the public just looks at things on a stand or on the wall, they have all that stuff readily available.
That's, yes, yeah.
I'm
I would
hoping
agree
that,
with that
Jed
makes more
will,
sense.
and redistricting partners will be able to have, a projector and screen where they can overlap stuff on there for us.
Right.
And just be able to.
Okay,
do it.
thank you.
So we're in category D. This is our kind of catch-all. And are they in numerical order right now?
They are, yeah.
Julia, since you have a concern with the Caseburg, how do you feel about number 14?
Can we pull number 14 up? I just sent a text to Brian Jacobson because I saw something come up on the meeting that said there's 5 minutes left. Am I going to get cut out? But I'm still, we don't have 5 minutes left on this call, right?
Nope, we're still going.
Okay, good. So I think he just read it, so we're good. Okay, so Caseburg Kingswood in 14 is kept intact. I think to one of the points that was made about when it's bigger, we can see a bit more, but just in general, I know that Caseburg Kingswood wants to be kept whole.
So this one has a 93% neighborhoods preserved. Blue Oaks is preserved, Sun City's preserved, Caseburg Kingswood, Stone Ridge, West Park, some of the bigger ones.
So there's something about number 3 that I really like. Also,
Are we
with
going back to
4.
three? Because we're on 14.
Well, they're both in D, category D, right?
Why don't we go numerically?
Well,
Okay, so start with 3.
3 and 14, I'm just looking at the line there for number, District 4. And I know the Caseburg thing isn't right, but this is where I'm thinking if there was some kind of combination of those two. That little swoopy thing there on the west side between 5 and 4, that's Pleasant Grove. And it is a very logical place to draw the boundaries because that whole Solaire and Silver Springs thing is kind of a mess over there in terms of school district things not being the same as the actual neighborhoods. So this would just alleviate having to deal with that altogether.
Are we talking about this one over 14 in comparison to 14?
3 and 14, kind of a combo of those. I like the...
I'm all about the contiguous. I made sure I wrote all these down, and this one's not contiguous. 3 isn't, but 14 is.
I like 14. 14's among my favorites.
Yeah, I like 14 as well.
So where are you not seeing the contiguousness?
I'm reading it off of Jed's report.
I can actually point that out for you. It's District 3. There is a tiny little 0 population block in the northeast corner of Blue Oaks that should just get lumped in with District 5 here.
And what about the rest of District 3? Does it otherwise seem contiguous to you, even though you have kind of that skinny
It is
part of-
otherwise, yep, I know that it is otherwise contiguous.
I think map 3 just doesn't seem like it addresses communities of interest appropriately, as well as 14 does.
Map 3 splits up 12
Julia,
neighborhoods.
14, does 14 keep the Caseburg one, the Caseburg-Kingsburg?
Yes.
Yes.
Would? Sorry. Yeah. Because I think 3 split them.
Yes, yeah, it keeps it together.
That's a lot.
I would go for 14 over 3.
Are there other preferences for 14?
I like 14.
Is there any objection to putting 14 in the pot?
No.
Okay, so we'll put 14 in the pot. Any other ones from category D that are of interest to y'all?
Can we see the list again?
Yeah.
I like 4 of them out of that one.
Okay, can we take a look at 15 and 25 since those were brought up in public comment?
Those two.
I mean, from a Caseburg Kingswood perspective, I do like that map 15 keeps us whole. I do think there's like a nice core at Roseville, Foothills Junction, Pleasant Grove, down to Vineyard. It's sometimes it's hard to tell the exact road, but I think 15 is a nice option to keep in the pot.
Yeah, I like 15 as well.
I also like 15.
I also like 15.
And did you say 15 and 25 were similar?
Yes.
Yes, yep.
Go back and forth between them? So I hear preferences for 15. Are there preferences for 25?
I think they get at a really interesting nuance that if we want to have public comment get into it, it really seems to focus on, is that core Roseville to include Diamond Oaks or to include Vineyard? And I don't know. And I would actually love to hear what people think about that distinction. So maybe keep both of them in. I know we have to then narrow it, but I think it's a really important distinction.
So you're suggesting
15 and 25.
15. So is there any opposition to keeping map 15?
No.
Let's put map 15 in the pot. And again, we can always narrow down more tonight.
I would go for 25 as well.
Okay, is there any opposition to putting map 25 in? All right, so let's add 15 and 25, which is fine, but we're starting to get up there.
Well, that's weeding out to do.
Are there any others in category D? Are there any in category E which either were kind of not terribly contiguous or the deviation was too high? Or maybe you like the general idea of it and so you want to discuss it? Does anybody want to pull out any in category E?
I just want to talk about 18 for a minute and 24. They're actually same, but one thing that does do is it keeps the 2 largest senior communities in one district, which I think is a good thing. And so most of these maps don't.
They're both
Although
tweaks
14
on
does.
11 too, aren't they?
What was that?
This is a redo of 11, both of those, yeah.
I would go with 11 then, because this one's not contiguous.
Are any of you concerned about the part that kind of splits Vineyard and then goes to Hilltop Circle, that
We're on 24.
seems more like it should be with 2 rather than 4?
I don't know, because that part really wraps around the unincorporated areas, and I'd say they have to work a lot with the county.
And because Foothill Junction, Wood Creek Oaks, and the others going west also?
It's the school district there, it's the Dry Creek School District.
So between 11, 24,
Well, just looking at 24 for a second, maybe we can bring up 11 after that, but on 24, I just have a hard time relating. I mean, I get a diverse district, that's fine, but how District 3 in this one is stretched so far kind of east-west. Like when I think of Blue Oaks and Harding being in the same district, like there's not, I mean, Blue Oaks neighborhood has a lot more commonality with the neighborhood south of it than they do that far east.
Although, doesn't that area of Blue Oaks, like that's when Cooley went up, like that Stanford Ranch area, like in terms of when they were developed, a lot of the Blue Oaks, it wasn't too far away from the rest of the yellow area, right?
Maybe in terms of timing, but I guess just
In terms of neighborhood.
yeah, in terms of neighborhood and schools and shopping and just.
It is different for that Blue Oaks neighborhood compared to where we have it on this map with the other folks, Diamond Oaks. Blue Oaks would be better served in the purple or the orange.
Yeah.
4 or 5.
It's just it's a lot of population in Blue Oaks. It's hard to swing it from one to the other. You'd have to take something else out like Campus Oaks.
Well, then let's look at 11.
Yeah.
Didn't we say 24 was like 11?
And 18, I think.
this does the same thing with Blue Oaks. Right?
It's the same thing.
I'm not a big fan of these ones.
Yeah, I
That's
would
why they're in
eliminate
category.
11. Just because it just does not look compact or not very
So
contiguous.
we discussed category D earlier. I think we're in category E. Are there any from category E that you want to put in the pot? Okay, and I think, unless you want to have one more chance to pull a map and put it in there, it looks like we have 6. Is that
Can
right?
we see the 6 to see if they kind of encompass the?
1, 6, 8, 14, 15, 25?
Put 1 and 12 in
Number
together
12.
just to see how it would play out. So
Just to confirm for everybody, because we are double checking as well. So as of right now, in the pot moving forward, I believe is map number 1, number 12, number 6, number 8, number 14, number 15, and number 25. And that's just for discussion moving forward to narrow that down potentially even further.
So that's 7.
7.
Are we all wanting to keep it at 5, or?
I think if we have too many choices, it's not, because, again, some of these are very similar, and all you have to do is move a few things around and take a hybrid of them, and
Can we look at them all and then we can, would 7 be too many, Joe?
You're welcome to have as many as you want, but just obviously we would be tweaking them at the next public hearings and trying to narrow them down, I would say, as quickly as we could.
feels like it, and from the start, we said 1 and 12 are so similar, but let's just leave them together and see how it plays out. Well, now it seems like the perfect time. Let's drop 12, keep 1.
yeah.
That's what our Arcona suggested, and okay, we're down at 6. Boom, right off the bat.
Can we look at them and then, yeah, and.
Put 1 and 12 up real quick, and while he's doing that, so you're saying
Since they're so similar,
Yeah, let's bring it.
unless there's opposition to removing 12.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I am just getting these organized so I don't have to flip between so many maps. Just getting them all in one place. So let's just do that real quick.
I would think we would keep 1 because we know one community of interest and probably one of the priorities for us is Arcona, and they selected 1. So I think for moving forward, that should be one of the options.
Plus 1 takes care of Sierra Vista, too.
Right.
So did we pick any from category E? We just kind of discussed it and then went back to looking at.
Nobody said they wanted any from category E when he asked.
I thought someone mentioned 24.
We talked
We discussed
We discussed it.
Sort
Yeah.
of things
No,
about 18 and 24.
Okay. Because I do think like the Blue Oaks, like that could be a nice distinction to have in there too. Like I know Blue Oaks doesn't want to be split. So if we have a map that has Blue Oaks split, Blue Oaks in with 5, Blue Oaks in with 3, that gives the public a lot of room to comment on which variation they prefer. So I would like to see a map where we put Blue Oaks in its entirety in with District 3. And I think one of the commissioners was talking about one, thought that was 24, but I could be wrong.
So yeah, the last category, they were really just small variations on either map 11 or map 12.
Now, does map 6 have Blue Oaks in District 4 entirely?
Okay. Oh.
So we do have a map that has Blue Oaks entirely in a district.
I don't know, I can't tell.
But that's in District 4. I thought it was an interesting thought to put Blue Oaks in with Stanford Ranch area.
In District 3.
Yeah.
That's map 14.
Okay, perfect. So we've got it in there. Thank you.
Map 1, right? Isn't it in map 1?
No, part of, I think it is in District 5.
It's-
But we do have it in
Part of it.
14. So we do have it in 14.
Can we just go, of the 6 or 7 that we have, can we just do them in numerical order? And
Yeah, I think somebody had asked to put 1 and 12.
Yeah, just to
which-
compare.
Which we can start with 1/12 and then move in numerical
Okay.
order.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 1 and 12.
Which one do we like better?
There we go.
Okay, so
Well,
12?
12 has that little toe down in Junction West, and 12 does not include historic Sierra Vista.
One.
Yeah, I would move we do 1 over 12.
And we'd have to fix that part
It's not contiguous.
up in the top corner of District 4. Right, Jed? It's not, that little part that's not contiguous?
Easy.
Yep, that's right. And if there's a preference on which district that goes to, you can go ahead and make that change.
Yeah, I think it goes
I-
to 3.
Yeah, I know it's administrative, but yeah, 3's as good as any because it's 0 population.
Do we need to decide that right now?
To have it fixed before we, I mean, if we know it's a problem, just to have it fixed before we go public with it.
Jed, do you have a district that you suggest to go to?
Yeah, I suggest to go to 3.
Okay.
It could also go to 5 if somebody felt very strongly about that.
That's on the other side of Blue Oak, so it would make more sense to stay with 3.
Yeah.
All right.
if it goes to 3, will it change the total deviation?
It will not. There's no population in that block.
Okay, so we're moving on map 1 with that change up there, moving that little part into District 3.
Just one small tweak on Sierra Vista neighborhood. There's a little block, the Roseville High School is should be part of Sierra Vista, but it's not. It's in
Yeah.
District 2.
That's
So
true, that should,
Roseville High
go
School
there.
should be moved into Sierra Vista because it's contiguous.
right there.
Any opposition to that?
You got it, Jed.
Okay, so you can do that too, Jed?
Yeah, that's 419
A lot of people.
folks in that. So I can do it, so long as it doesn't push us above the 10% mark.
Okay, because we're at 9.5. All right. So we've got 1 and not 12.
1 and not 12.
So next one is 6. Do we want to keep 6 how it is or try to move historic Sierra Vista into District 2? And then I think also that northern part of Foothills Junction, do we want to clean that up?
Again, I'd leave this map out completely. We're going to drop some. This is one I would drop.
And didn't we hear 8 was, we've been talking about 6 and 8, so maybe we can toggle between those two.
Was 8 one of the others?
Yeah, District 6 keeps a lot of the lines similar to what they are now.
I like 8 better than 6.
I like 8 better than 6, too.
8 is better than 6.
8 is better than 6?
This helps in your consideration. Again, remember that we got the 4 public testimony today, and each one of them recommends map number 6.
Including Sun City.
Including the Sun City Roseville Community Association, correct?
So we're saying Arcona gets 1.
City gets it.
City.
City gets 1.
I'm in support of 6. I mean, I don't necessarily think that 6 maps is even too many to bring forward. I almost think we could stop right now and move ahead with 6 and let the public just go from there.
I would be for that. That's why I asked how many.
And there's none of these other 4, 8, 14, 15, and 25 that anybody wants to remove.
Oh, we should keep 15.
15? Okay,
15?
that's in there.
That's in there.
Oh, it's still in there. Okay,
But
cool.
are any
Okay,
of
good.
these-
I was
are
like,
any of
wait,
these
are we
other-
stopping?
We're saying move forward with all the ones we have now.
Are any of these other 4
Yeah.
similar enough to
Okay,
each
cool.
other that we would take one of them out? Or are they 4 different enough? Okay, so what I see is that we have 6. Do you want to have further discussion on this, or have a motion that these 6 are the ones that we present to the public and create a draft report on?
I'll make a motion.
And Joe, how specific do you want the motion to be?
I'm going to help it out real quick before you make the motion, and I just want to talk about, I believe the ones that we're talking about are moving forward map number 1, number 6, number 8, number 14, number 15, and number 25. So if someone wants to make a motion to move those forward as the draft maps for further consideration at the public hearings in January, then I would entertain a motion, or Mr. Chair, you can entertain a motion.
Is there a motion?
I'll make the motion for what Joseph said.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second.
I'm here to steer the ship. Yeah.
Commissioner Borowiak. Robertson. Frank. Griffith.
Yes.
Ludwig.
Yes.
McPhail. Yes.
Yes.
Sweeney.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Baldwin.
Yes.
Help me out. Who seconded the motion?
Me.
Thank you. So now that we have those maps identified, we were talking about in map number 1, moving certain little areas. I don't know if we're going to even talk about that any further, or are we just talking about moving those 1, 6, 8, 14, 15, 25, just moving them forward for further discussion?
I think it's 1 with changes if Jed can do it.
Yes, we can do that, but I just want to make sure that we captured that motion correctly, that all of those maps are moving forward, but with the change that map number 1 would, there's that little area in district, I don't know what it was, 4 or whatever, that's going to move over into District 3, as well as the comment about Roseville High and that area being in Sierra Vista. But I don't know if I missed anything else about map number 1.
No, thanks for saying that, Joe. That was my intention, to make a motion to.
Okay, thank you. I saw it in your eyes. Yeah. Yeah.
On January 24th, we will likely only have to do the choosing of one of these maps.
Correct. January 24th, we are going to choose 1 map to move forward. So from this portion forward, from here, all of these maps will be put up on the city's website and published, and we'll have information on why we are moving forward with these. And then the discussion that's going to happen at all the meetings in January is narrow down why we would like to choose one over the other, and we will have more of this discussion, just many, many more times until we narrow it down.
And there can be tweaks to the ones that we're choosing from those public hearings. There can be tweaks to the ones that we're choosing from the public hearings.
Absolutely. The final map may look nothing like any of the ones that we're moving forward right now. It may be a blend of everything.
Jed, at the public hearings, will people have little stickies that they put on each map if they like it, like their first choice, second choice? How does that look?
Yeah, so we will have the large format maps that folks have available. And so, yes, they will have a form that they can fill out that includes, if they want to make any community of interest testimony, or if they have anything specific they want to say about any of the maps that are up there. So there will be a paper thing that we can walk away with to take comment as well.
We have a, call to order, pledge of allegiance, everything like that? Or do we just have punch and cookies and the little sticky notes?
It's going to be a normal meeting like we have here. We're just sort of taking it on the road. And so each one of the meetings will be exactly how we do it here, just happens to be on the
So we
road.
won't have telephone access at those, except for the one that's here on that Saturday.
That's correct.
Sonia has fingers up.
2 meetings with city council chambers.
Okay, 2 of them.
Yes, the 2 meetings that'll be in the council chambers that will be televised are on January 11th at 6 p.m. and January 15th, which is the Saturday meeting, at 2 p.m. So both of those meetings will for sure be televised, just normal how we're doing it now.
But at all the public hearings in January, other than the 24th, we're not taking any actions.
Not taking any action. This is all just a 30-day time period to receive all the public comment and on, essentially what we've been talking about tonight. We just narrowed it down to what is going to be moving forward toward the final map.
Okay.
Jed, and
Would it be possible to record them in case any commissioners aren't able to make any of those meetings, that they can always watch back? Not to live stream it, but just to even
Ryan's
record it?
saying no. Jacobson's saying no.
Okay, so if we want it recorded, bring our own camera.
One moment.
If we record audio, and I think we've talked about that a little bit. But if we recorded video, then we might as well broadcast it. And the reason we're not doing that is because the amount of work that it would take for us to do that, to take that on the road and all those different places in a short time frame. So if we're not going to do any of the broadcasting, then we're not going to have any video capabilities. But we can record audio if somebody wanted to follow along with the maps in a printed version, if they wanted to do that.
I'd like something recorded. If it's only the audio that's possible, I can also, see if someone will record it and just throw it on YouTube. Maybe not from the city of Roseville, but someone can record it.
We certainly can do the audio, like I said, we can do that. That's easy enough for us to do.
There's nothing prohibiting a member of the public from taping it with their phone and putting it on YouTube.
That is correct. It's actually up to your discretion, Mr. Chair, as to whether or not you would like people to not record. I mean, it happens when people come in with their cell phones and record during meetings. So yes, if it's disruptive in some way such that the chair wants to eliminate that, but yes, it is possible to do.
Okay. And Jed, in your experience, how many people might we expect?
Not that many. Unfortunately, it's just, in our experience, we haven't seen it be the most exciting of public events. And I will also plug for Brian that is never for any lack of outreach by the community engagement folks or the PIOs that we've been working with. We've seen massive outreach efforts, and a lot of times you just don't see that many folks. So, I would say high end, 20 people.
A night or total?
A night.
That's not bad.
That's not bad.
All right, any other questions or comments from commissioners? Seek a motion to...
One moment before we do that, so sorry. So moving forward, we're going to have the maps that we've been talking about moving forward, as well as I wanted to talk some more about the final report that we're going to be creating in the draft report. So I don't know if the commission wants to handle all of that themselves, if the chair would like to handle it, or create a subcommittee or direct staff to prepare that analysis of why we're moving forward with these specific maps. Again, it's going to be just generally the information that we talked about today, as well as the information that Jed presented on each one of those maps. We're sort of just going to prepare that into a report. And so I'm open to suggestions on what you as a commission would like to do moving forward for that.
I don't mind working with staff or with a subcommittee if anybody else would like to be on the subcommittee.
So the time frame with the 72 hours?
So this is sort of if the subcommittee was created, we would have to have less than 5 people so that we wouldn't have a Brown Act violation. And then timing wise, we need to get this map published by Thursday. And so yes, it truly is like prepare the report tomorrow and Wednesday to get it published for Thursday. So we're happy to do that. I mean, we have all of us staff have a meeting set up already tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock to kind of rehash everything that went over today. So we're ready and available to start preparing a report if necessary.
And any subcommittee meetings, would that be by Zoom or together?
Yeah, however we would want, it's not going to be in this room and televised. Yeah, it would be by.
Is there any interest from commissioners on being on a subcommittee?
If it was a true subcommittee that was less than the majority of the people, it would not have to be, you know, Brown Act noticed and agendized and things like that.
Is there any interest?
It sounds like a job for staff to me.
Me too.
Me too.
Not that I'm trying to pick
I'd be
on
happy
you,
to work
Joe.
with staff.
This week.
But I'm sure anyone who really wants to get involved probably could contribute, right?
I will certainly say that if staff prepares the report, that's just the draft report. Everyone's welcome to tweak it over the next 30 days. We will circulate it to all of you so that you have it before the next meeting to be able to provide your input. I will just say that Sonia's probably not going to help out much with it, given that she retires in 5 minutes. So.
That seems fair.
So do we need to make a decision tonight?
Yeah, I'm happy if you want to direct staff to prepare a draft of that report and, you know, we turn it around to you in the next 24, 48 hours. That's certainly something that we would love to provide you for the holidays.
Motion for that, or just?
Yes, please do that, yes.
Is there a motion to have staff do a draft report?
I'll make a motion to have staff do the draft report.
Second it.
Okay, roll call.
Borowiak. Yes. Cuthbertson.
Yes.
Frank.
Yes.
Griffith.
Yes.
Ludwig.
Yes.
McPhail.
Yes.
O'Keefe.
Yes.
Sweeney.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
And Waldrop.
Yes.
Thank you. We will prepare a report then highlighting why the commission chose maps 1, 6, 8, 14, 15, and 25, given the information that we received tonight and given all of the testimony that was provided today. So thank you.
Now may I seek a motion to adjourn? I seek a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Roll call, or can I, all in favor say aye?
It's all in favor of that one, I hope.
Aye.
Aye.
Nays?
Excellent job, everybody. Congratulations.
Happy holidays,
this is a big
everybody.
step.
Merry Christmas.
Well done.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, Sonia.
Bye, Julia. Have fun in
Julia.
Ireland. Bye, Julia. That's not fair.